great honor and privilege to introduce Shulamit Rappaport and Solomon Jacobovitz. We're here in Yerushalayim, and I am so grateful to you both. Shulamit, if you could start, if you could mention, you come from a very distinguished and very, very choshev family, family of Rabbanim, and you have a connection with Rabbi Schonfeld. So if you could just mention a little bit about your upbringing and who your family was.
Rabbi Schonfeld was the one who saved our lives, who got permission from my father to go. He got permission from Bonim and their families to come over to England. And of course we can never be grateful enough to him. It was a net that we were able to come. And we were a family of 7 children, and my father was able to bring us all to England. Actually, he sent my oldest brother, who later became the chief rabbi of England. We were able to leave Germany before the war, and my father did not know a single word of English. My mother knew a little bit. We children didn't know any English either. My father insisted that we speak English so that he can learn English, and he did learn English, and he later became a dayan in the London based in, because he was the only one who really reached the top, but of course he had to know English for the purpose, and he learned it, and he worked very hard at it. He was over 50 when he came to England, and life was certainly not English, not easy, and but Baruch Hashem, he managed to work again as a dayan. And he was dealing with the problem of the agona, and at that time he was unable to let most women remarry. And that was only later on they discovered that a lot of people, where people were nifta and how they were nifta, so that it was a fact that they were actually nifta, then they were able to remarry, but that took some time, and unfortunately with all this worry, my father was nifta at the age of 60. He had a heart attack, and that was the end. But Baruch Hashem, we were still the lucky ones that we were able to be in England. Now in Germany, I remember when my brother Solomon, he was in a non-Jewish school because we lived too far away from a Jewish school. So he was in a non-Jewish school, and Solomon, I'm just telling them what they told you in school one day. The teacher said to him...
Not the teacher, the principal.
Yeah. So you tell them.
You know the story just as well.
Yes, but I didn't experience it. You experienced it, and you know it, so you say it.
All right. One day, the principal came into my classroom, and he was very brief. He said, Jacobovitz, Jude, raus.
He sent him on the street.
Yeah, he sent me on the street. But my parents were wise enough to know what it was all about. I was 6 years old, so I had no idea what all this anti-Semitism was about. But my father knew quite well what's going on, generally well informed, and he saw the writing on the wall. We were lucky; we were able to get a ship to England, and that saved our lives.
Can I ask, what year were you born in?
I was born in 1929. He's 3 years younger.
1929.
Yes, he's 3 years younger than me.
And do you remember the area that you lived in?
Yes. You see, I'll tell you a little story also about my father. It came to Sukkot 1939, and we were in Germany, and my father never rented a flat without making a condition to put up a sukkah in somewhere or other. But in that year, 1938, he didn't dare to put the sukkah up anymore. So obviously we were lucky. Our balcony didn't have another balcony above, so my father measured it up, and he said we could just put a little sukkah there, which you wouldn't see from the street. And so my father, I still see him and hear him, he crawled into the sukkah, which only went up to the top of the balcony, and he put the schach on top, and then he literally crawled into the sukkah, and he said, Baruch Hashem, I'm sitting in a kosher sukkah. That was the greatest thing for my father. That was in 1938. And after that was the 10th of November, and then my father left Germany with most of the children, and my mother still stayed to get out the sforim and the furniture, because my father had no panosa coming to England. So, but I still remember how he crawled into the sukkah and said, Baruch Hashem, I'm sitting in a sukkah. I don't think he could have realized that the people upstairs were not our friends any longer either. But anyway, he was very grateful and very happy to sit in the sukkah.
And did your siblings go into the sukkah as well?
Well, the boys, there wasn't much room. As you can imagine, the balcony wasn't that big. And those, yes. I had 2 in England already, as I told you before. And I still had one big brother who was 3 years older than me, Joseph. And he was ate in that sukkah as well, but he was too small. He didn't have to eat in the sukkah. And then, as soon as he could, after the 10th of November, my father went out, left Germany with my sister and one brother who was 3 years older than me, and Solomon also joined them. And I stayed in town because I had a younger brother, and I stayed to look after him. My mother saw to whatever had to be seen to before we leave. So my father left the end of 38, and my mother with my youngest brother and myself, and my grandmother actually, we left February 39.
And do you remember Kristallnacht?
I didn't know anything about Kristallnacht, and I'll tell you why. We didn't live in a Jewish district. My father had a shul there, but we didn't live in a Jewish district. So when I went to school that day, the Jewish school was in town, and then they sent me home again. And I saw a lot of glass lying around, but I didn't know what it was all about.
And what happened to your father's shawl, to the necklace?
And my father's shawl was not burned, but it was bombed during the war. But one shul, the weekday shul, was still, we had a very big shul, but the weekday shul was still left, and it's standing today. They've rebuilt it. The very big shul was bombed by the English, the British or the Americans, I don't know who, and but then they pulled down afterwards. It was too dangerous.
And do you remember any anti-Semitism on the streets? Do you remember the atmosphere?
They used to be. I used to love skating, and it was written up a big notice: "Juden unerwünscht." But I went. We had no idea of the danger at the time. We didn't know what danger there was. Thank you.
We didn't know the extent of the hatred of the Jews.
No.
We just didn't know that
We couldn't imagine it.
We lived in the same apartment building they got you. They themselves didn't quite know what had gone wrong. I mean, we didn't know that we were living in a neighborhood that was intent on making life for Jews difficult and dangerous.
Did you have a lot of non-Jewish friends growing up in school?
Did I have
non-Jewish friends?
They were not friends. No, the Jews and the non-Jews didn't mix.
In school? Did you have any school friends, non-Jewish?
No, we didn't have. We didn't know that was the big question of the day. We didn't realize what was happening. And I was only 6 years old and didn't understand the changes that were taking place while we lived there. So, and we didn't realize that an intense change was about to come. We didn't grasp. We never heard of such a thing before.
I tell you, my parents didn't speak about it either. They kept it all secret, that they had planned to leave the country. You didn't publicize these things.
And did you have any non-Jewish friends in your apartment building or in the school?
My parents took me out of the Goy school, and then I told you it was too far away for you. But I went to Jewish school later.
And did you have in the neighborhood any non-Jewish friends?
I can't remember any Jewish friends. No, I had Jewish. No, I can't remember having any Jewish friends.
And do you remember walking on the street and having any anti-Semitic incidents?
They used to call after us sometimes, but we didn't realize how serious it was. But we just had no idea. See, and as I said to you, we did not live in a Jewish district. So they went after my father on Kristallnacht, which they would have been if he'd been in a Jewish district, I'm sure. But but we went. My father went the end of 38, and we went in February 39. But we didn't realize that God parted us forever.
And how did your father go? Did Rabbi Schonfeld help your father?
My father got the papers, and with those papers he went officially.
And who helped him get the papers, or who was instrumental?
I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't know. Who was instrumental in Papi getting the papers?
To go to come to England?
Yes.
Yes, it was a rich family called Coleman.
They sponsored.
They sponsored it? Coleman?
You have sponsors to sponsor families coming.
Yes.
And the Colemans were close friends till after the end of the war.
Yes, they lived there.
And some of their children remained friends even after the war.
So can I ask, when you left Germany,
Yes.
was it very emotional to leave your home? How did you feel leaving? Did you have still family left behind in Berlin?
Yes, I did. My mother had a sister in Berlin, and her husband was also off. And my father begged him to leave, and he didn't want to leave his kid, and he didn't want to leave his children.
And he never survived.
The 6 children.
And also the children, do they know what happened when they were taken?
Yes, they think. You told me. I have all of the papers are done. On the Adresham website, there's a list. It's called Transports to Extinction. And what it is the Germans kept very, very careful records of all of the Jews who were deported from Western Europe to their deaths in the East, in ghettos and camps. And there are no records like this that were kept of the Jews being deported from Eastern Europe, only the Jews being deported from Western Europe. And I found the name of my uncle, Rabbi Dr. Felix Zingerman, and my aunt Gertrude Zingerman, and their 6 children. I can send you the exact information, but they were all deported to the Minsk ghetto in Elul, the month of Elul, on a Friday, or Shabbos, Friday night Shabbos. I have all the information exactly, it's either 1942 or 1943. And we know that what happened to all the German Jews who were deported to the Minsk ghetto, they were all killed just about immediately upon arrival.
So when you found this information, it must have been devastating.
It was very traumatic for me. My
traumatic. Mother,
who was the older sister of my Aunt Solomon, my Uncle Solomon, my mother unfortunately passed away when I was only 2 years old. So I never had the opportunity to ever talk to her about, especially my uncle today, about what was life like in Germany, what happened during the war. I knew nothing about it because I didn't have a mother to tell me, and the rest of the family didn't speak about it. The Jacobovitz family, and correct me if I'm wrong, felt very much you live in the present and you look forward to the future, and the past is the past. And especially a very traumatic past, such as this, and a very tragic past, was not one that was discussed very freely. Certainly nobody ever discussed it with me. And I myself was planning a trip to Berlin with my husband, very much on my husband's encouragement, because in the worst way, I did not want to go. But he felt that it would be very helpful for me to go to Berlin and to trace my mother's moves, to literally, physically walk in her footsteps. And when we were preparing for the trip to Berlin, I was working in Evesham, as I mentioned, and there was a young German girl who was working with me in the Evesham. She still works. Her name was Sarah, not Jewish. Sarah Eisenman sounds Jewish. And she's also a guide in our department.
and right outside Charlottenburg, a very, very wealthy suburb of Berlin, extremely wealthy. Well, I don't even think it's a suburb; it's actually part of the city, right? But it's a little bit isolated from the rest of Berlin, and they had a very quiet train station. And from that train station is where they deported all of the Jews to their deaths in various places. They didn't want it to be in the eye of the public. So this train station is very quiet and very cool. And if you go there today to this platform, it's a very long platform, and the entire length of the platform, they have small little plaques in metal telling you the number of each transport, exactly how many Jews were on that transport, whether 63 Jews or whether 102 Jews, the date that the transport left, and what its destination was. And she said to me, if you have any family that left from this particular platform to the east, it would be very meaningful for you when you visit the platform to find the plaque of the date that they were deported. And I said, I don't think we had any family from Berlin that was deported, but I said, I have an uncle who knows everything that there is to know about the family. I said, I can ask him, but I know that my grandparents and all of the children, thank God, reached the safety of Great Britain. I know we had relatives from my grandmother's family from Frankfurt who were deported to Theresienstadt, actually, but I did not know about any family from Berlin. And so I went to visit my uncle, Uncle Solomon, do you remember this? I went to visit you to ask you if we had any family from Berlin that was deported to the east. And I went to Berlin. Before I went to Berlin, Jonathan and I came to meet with you, and we came to ask you if we had any relatives at all that might have been deported from Berlin to the east. And I was sure you were going to say, no, we all got out. But you didn't say that. You said, oh, yes, we had an uncle. You didn't tell me about the whole family. We have an uncle whose name was Rabbi Felix Zingerman. And he was deported from Berlin to the east. And I said, you're kidding, I didn't know anything about this uncle. I said, how is he our uncle? And you said, because his mother was Oma's sister. Do you remember?
His wife.
His wife was Oma's sister.
Yeah.
I said, I never even heard. How did he get stuck in Berlin if everybody else left? And he said, because he refused to leave Berlin. He felt that he had to stay in Berlin as long as there was one person from his Kehillah who might have needed his help. And he refused to leave Berlin, and that's all you told me. It was about him.
Yeah, that's right.
All I knew, I didn't know that he also had a wife and 6 children who were deported. So after you gave me his name, I went home and I looked on the internet on the site called Transports to Extinction, and I find Dr. Felix Zingerman and the day that he was deported to the Minsk ghetto, and then I see that together with him were deported his wife and 6 children.
My mother never got
including a very small child. I was so stunned. And I went back to you and I said, Uncle Solomon, Uncle Felix wasn't deported alone. He had a wife and 6 children who were deported together with him. And he said, yes, that's true. I said, did you have a connection to these children?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, and you also said to me, of course we were together with them all the time, and we used to spend Shabbos walking back and forth, and we played in each other's houses. And I couldn't believe this. An entire family wiped out.
My mother never
got husband,
over that.
A wife, and 6 young, beautiful children gone. As if they had never even existed. And since I learned that information, every Friday night, I light a candle for each
Everybody knows.
Every Friday night, since I learned the story,
Really?
I light a candle for that family. And I say each of the names because nobody's left. Nobody's left to light candles in that family. And so every Friday night I light a candle for them.
We put up a matzeva on my mother's matzeva.
Oh, really?
Yes.
In their memory.
Yes.
Like in the back?
In Enfield. In Enfield.
In the back? Is it written on the back of matzeva? It was so traumatic for me to learn this. It was so traumatic. My children were always Israel, and how close they are, and they're always together, and they're in and out, and they've gone through life together from infancy to adulthood.
I never really thought didn't speak about it, because she did speak about it to me.
Well, I knew nothing
them
about
well.
it. I knew nothing about it. And then I asked Shushi Jacobovitz. She knew nothing about it. Uncle Mano never said a word about it.
Really?
Not a word. And then I asked Rutley.
My children
And
know.
Rutley told me that she knows. And you know who else told me about them? Nechama Waldheim. Nechama Waldheim. In fact, she sent me a photograph from her parents' wedding in Germany. That was in the 1930s. And in that photograph appears the whole family. My mother's in the photograph. Uncle Mano's in the photograph. I'm not sure who else was old enough. Maybe Uncle Joseph was at the wedding. I'm not the little children.
I was at the wedding too.
And so maybe you were also, and the whole Zingerman family. And they're in that photograph.
You remember the wedding?
Yes, I do. Yes.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it was very incredible. And
My mother looked to see if she couldn't find one of the Zingerman children, at least till the day of her death.
She hoped that there was a survivor.
Nothing. Yeah, she never got over it.
Can I ask you, when you left Germany,
Yes.
do you remember the day you left? Do you remember leaving with your mother?
I remember part of the journey, but otherwise not so much. You know, we're just looking forward to getting the family together again. You know, they were in London and...
So you had been separated for a few months? Or?
yes.
And when you saw your father,
Well, we were very happy to see him and to see each other again. And of course, afterwards, when I was a bit older, I realized we could have been partners for life.
there were many families that were parting.
Of course. Yes. Nobody realized what was going to happen.
And where did you, when you came to London, or when your father came to London,
Yes.
where did you stay?
They gave us a house.
In which part of London? Which part of London did your family stay in?
N60.
Sorry?
N16.
Which suburb is
That's
that?
Stafford Hill. around
Stafford
there.
Hill.
Yes.
It was the Jewish
Yes.
area.
Yes, that was a Jewish area. Yes. 38 Braden Road, I remember. Remember, Solomon? 38 Braden Road?
It's number 38,
Yes.
Braden Road.
Yes.
And when you came to England, did you know any? You had to learn English.
Yes. Of course I had to learn English, and my father was very particular that we should, whatever English we could speak, we should speak so that we would learn the language.
And the school instructed us not to speak German, because then we become called Germans, and we didn't feel like Germans.
And you still.
So I have here, for example, I just put up on my phone. This is from the Yad Vashem database of names of victims who perished. So, for example, this is a page that was filled out for Dr. Felix Zingerman and his wife Gertrude, whose maiden name Zingerman, whose maiden name was Fresner.
No, her name was
Gertrude Zingerman, her maiden name was Gertrude.
Yes,
right.
yes.
Okay, from Berlin. Her husband was a rabbi, and with 6 children. And this page was filled out. I wonder if you would know who this is. Herta Wertmann in Yerushalayim in 1956. And how would she have known who they were?
I don't know who she was.
Doesn't sound. She
Wertmann?
Herta, maybe her maid. This is her married name, maybe Wertmann in Yerushalayim in 1956.
Can one see the?
This is the page of testimony, but I can show it to you. Here it is. But there are many others. Also here. This is not the.
And this is the page that 1956. Yeah. It's amazing.
I don't know who this was.
I'm sorry.
Wait a minute. Now here you. Here's a Shmuel. His Hebrew name was Shmuel. He also appears, they also have his name in the database because it appears in the list of the Gedenk book, the list of murdered Jews from Germany. And it says here, Shmuel Zingerman. Shmuel was Uncle Felix's Hebrew name. Shmuel Zingerman was born in Kosten, Poland in 1888. Prior to World War II, he lived in Berlin, Germany. Shmuel was murdered in the Shoah, and this information came from the Gedenk book of the Jews of. But I will also show you. Okay, you can continue interview now.
Which school did you go to in Stamford Hill?
It was called the Jewish Secondary School. Rav Schonfeld started the school.
And did your parents know Rabbi Schonfeld?
Yes.
They were very close?
I don't know how close they were, but he was a very busy man, you know, very busy.
Oh yes, they were very close.
They were close. Did he have a part to play in helping your parents leave Germany to come to England?
Yes, he got them the permits.
He was the one that got the permits.
Yes, there were 50 Rabbonim with their families.
So it was a lot because of Rabbi Schonfeld that your family were able to leave Germany.
Well, imagine how many people he saved how many people that is today after all those years. I mean, they've multiplied, you know. And I can only tell you for my family, it's very much multiplied, Baruch Hashem. And all those people he saved.
So they say that it's over 3,000 that he actually saved, but from those families there's so many descendants.
Exactly.
In Schonfeld Square they've got a statement. They asked Rabbi Schonfeld, how many Yidden did you save? How many Jews did you save? And his answer was not how many I saved, how many did we not save?
How many did you not save?
Did we not manage to save? And it's
like my uncle, as you just heard.
He was a real hero, a tremendous hero, unsung hero.
A great man. Oh, yes.
This is the list, by the way, of the rest of the family. There was one daughter was named Genendel. There was a Yoel also.
Who are you talking?
Genendel Zingerman had a child named Genendel.
There was a Ruth.
This is a picture of
Ruth.
This is a picture of the Gedenk book, by the way, that lists all of them.
Show me the picture.
Yeah, 1 second. Here, let me show you the list. Here, there was Genendel was one of the children. Was one of the girls.
There was a Giza.
Maybe that was Genendel.
That was Genendel. I see. She was my age. I was very friendly with her.
Okay, so now I lost it. There was Genendel. There was a Yoel. There was a Eudice.
Yes, Yudah was the young.
There was a Margot, whose Hebrew name was
named
Ruth.
After her.
There's a Margot, whose Hebrew name was Ruth.
Yes, Ruth. Yes.
Then maybe they're not. Martin Zingerman. Nachum, whose name was Walter.
Was what?
His German name was Walter, and his Hebrew name was Nachum.
Walter. That's right, Walter.
There's another one. Now maybe this one wasn't related. Uri Moshe. There was Gittel. Gittel was the wife. Her Hebrew name was Gittel. Shmuel, right? Shmuel is the father.
Yes,
there was a
Gertrude.
Regina.
Tante Gertrude.
Regina. Max. Eva Adolf, whose Hebrew name was Abraham. Reizo. And here's Genendel again. And these are the same names again. I will show you on the...
It's amazing. And can I ask, when you were at school, how did you, being from Germany, how did the English children, how did they, did they take you in? Did you?
There were a whole load of us. That was the only Jewish school at the time, and there were a lot of us. So they became very much a part of the school because there were so many of us.
And were there many other German-speaking kids as well?
Yes.
And
Mostly German speaking, because the other countries, they didn't yet send their children out. Why should they? I mean, Hitler hadn't got that to the other countries.
and did you speak to each other a bit in German? Or
Yes, of course.
you did.
Of course. You couldn't expect us to speak in a language which you didn't know.
Did it take a long time to learn English?
No, not really. For us children, no.
And how did you feel living in England? Was it difficult,
You know
the
what?
transition?
My parents were there, my siblings were there. Didn't think much about it. This is how it was. I mean, we didn't know why we left Germany. That much we didn't know. I was 9 years old, but I still knew that.
And were your parents close with the Dunner family that also had
Yes,
left?
they knew the Dunner family from before, from years.
So there were many families that they
There
had
were
met.
some families, not too many that we knew, but some, yes. The Dunners for sure. Yes. Yes. Yes, I used to go in there quite often, used to help them a bit. And, yes.
And
yes.
can I ask, if I had to ask you, what was your earliest recollections growing up in Berlin? What do you remember? One of your early?
I was the first one in my family who was born in Germany. The others, my father was a from Königsberg before. So they lived in Königsberg, but I was the first one born in Germany, in Berlin.
And have you ever been back to Germany?
I have been back.
Was it difficult? Very
I
emotional.
was so happy when I just went for the day. I went with my son. He had to see somebody there, and I went along with him. But I was so happy to get out.
Did you go to Berlin?
Yes, in Berlin.
And did you go to the apartment where you grew up?
No, I don't think it was there anymore. I think it was bombed or something. I don't know.
Yes, we visited.
What?
We visited that apartment.
You see, he visited the shoot as well. Yes.
We visited that apartment. And after the war, they were so friendly.
Yeah.
And who took over is the apartment still there? The apartment.
Our apartment is still there today.
Did you manage to go inside?
Yes. Went inside, spoke to the neighbors, we told them we are the people who were driven out of here. And they were very friendly.
And how long did you stay in London? Did you get married in London?
I got married in London, but I moved to Zurich. Because my husband was from Zurich.
And tell me with you
Well, are you talking about before the war, after the war?
after the war.
After the war, well, I was the one who traveled most in Germany. I was very excited that I could visit these places that I'd known as a child and made the most of it.
And can I ask,
Particularly I.
during the war, living in London, did you hear what was going on in the rest of Europe? Did you know what was
It's
happening?
not the first time I've been asked that.
I'm sorry, it's a very difficult question.
We did really. It was after the war. More and more.
But during the war, did you...
No. But you know, people somehow escaped once in a while, even from Auschwitz, and they told the people who were left, and they didn't believe it. How could you believe what was going on? It was just not possible to believe.
And I've been very fortunate to meet with Kindertransport that were sent.
Yes.
When you were living in Sanford Hill, did you manage to associate or meet the Kindertransport that had left from?
I tell you what, I had a sister-in-law came from Leipzig, and she came over with Kinderbus when she married my